Hey everybody, this is Dream, and today we have a 11 game Major League Baseball slate. Pretty big slate here, so let's go ahead and get into this one. Though before I get started, I do have some weather updates. So the Yankees game, the Philadelphia Phillies game, and the Washington game all have some weather concerns today, so do keep track of that today. So let's go ahead and get into our pitchers here. Also, before I get started, can you guys smash that like and subscribe button? It really helps the channel a lot. Really do appreciate all you guys for supporting the channel, and also the members for supporting the channel. So let's go ahead and get into this here. So we're going to start with Mr. Snell for San Diego. Now, he does have a tough matchup here for a big slate like this, but he's been over 20 fantasy points in 5 of the last 7 and just one under 17 since the start of June. He's a great option on the slate. His ERA is good, but he is high risk, high reward because he is facing Houston today, who obviously have some really good bats. Then we'll look at Senga. Now, he's been inconsistent throughout the season, but he's got a good matchup here, though he is overpriced. He does have a good K rate for this matchup, and with Minnesota being the worst strikeout team in the league, he's also got some as much upside as anybody on the slate, though he is up and down throughout the season, so I do, there's a little bit of concern there, but he's been really good lately. Then we'll look at Jordan Montgomery here. He's overpriced here, but he's got a good matchup. His K rate is inconsistent, though. His ceiling is around 28 fantasy points. His floor is bad, though, so do keep that in mind. But he does tend to have good and bad games throughout the season. As you can see, his ERA is 3.46, and his win-loss record is 8 and 10. So he is very risky from that perspective. But he's got a good matchup. Then we'll look at Bradish for for Baltimore. He's facing Boston today. This is a tough matchup for him, but he's capable of. He's been solid really lately with 8 wins in 13 straight games. In the last, 8 wins in the last 13 games. He's also had 4 straight quality starts, which give him an advantage here. He's pitched very well. I do think some Boston bats are a little bit good today, but he does have that potential for somewhere between a 15 and 25 fantasy point game today, and so I do like him here. Then we'll look at Harrison for San Francisco. Now he's facing Colorado. He is overpriced here, but he does have big time potential as he had 37 fantasy points for Cincinnati a couple games ago. He's only pitched 3 games this season, but the other 2 were under 10 fantasy points, so do keep that in mind. But his K rate has actually been solid so far, so that gives him some utility here as he's had nothing less than 5 strikeouts in the 3 games that he's played so far. He also has managed the 1 win, so I do think he's viable today, but he's high risk, high reward, and a Hail Mary play as a result. And he's overpriced. Then we'll look at Canning for LA Angels. Now, his range here today is 14 to 22. He's had some potential, but Cleveland does not strike out too much, so that is a concern here. But he has got some upside as he's had some good games lately, and he does draw some good quality starts sometimes. So he is somebody I think is a viable option today, but he does manage to give up a couple earned runs usually, and I do think some Cleveland bats are capable of that today. Kikuchi for Toronto is facing Kansas City today. His K rate is keeping him in play with 5 straight games over 6 strikeouts. He has a decent matchup here for that as well, and he does have some high risk here, but he's got a 13 to 24 fantasy point range today. I think is a viable option here. And then we'll look at Sheehan for the Dodgers. Now he's a Hail Mary play on the slate. He has 12 to 19 fantasy point upside with a chance of a win. Though he has been boomer bust throughout the season so far, he hasn't pitched a ton of good games, but he is capable of getting up to 20 fantasy points occasionally, especially if he can pull the win. But I don't think he'll go too deep in the game, 4 to 5 innings at the most. So do keep that in mind. But he's nice and cheap and a good way to pay up for some bats and stuff like that. So let's go ahead and get into our catchers here. And we'll start with Adley Rutschman for Baltimore. Now, he has been inconsistent recently, but he does draw good metrics here. He has nice upside on the slate and has good potential. I do think he's a viable home run hitter today, but he is high risk, high reward as he is pretty pricey. JT Realmuto also in play for Phillies. Now, he's hit the ball very well recently, almost hitting 300 with 3 home runs over the last 10. He's having some really good games. He's also had 3 home runs in the last 4 total games. He's hitting the ball very well right now with a couple multi-hit games in that stretch as well, so I think he's a viable option here. And then Jonah Heim for Texas. Now, if he draws a start today, he'll be somebody I definitely like with home run potential. He doesn't start every day, but he does start most games, and he does draw some good potential. He's also got multi-hit potential, but getting a home run would definitely be a big boost for him as well, as he is capable of that. But in 6 games versus Oakland this season, he's had 10 fantasy points a game, and so he does draw really good metrics here. Maybe in the first base, we'll start with Matt Wilson for oopsie, for Atlanta. Now, he is a core play for me today, and he has hit the ball very well with 4 home runs in the last 4 games. 3 of those games have been multi-hit games as well. His fantasy points are very good. He's actually not as expensive as I expected him to be today, as I kind of thought he was going to be in the top of the metrics from that perspective, but be over 6,500. But he's still actually a little bit cheap, so he's a viable option here and has home run potential. Pete Alonso is a lot cheaper. He's had 3 home runs the last 2 games that he started. He draws some really good metrics here, and I like his upside. He's got home run potential, and he is chasing Matt Olson right now in the home run race, but he is not too far behind. Then we'll look at Villar for San Francisco. Now, he's kind of a Hail Mary play as he hasn't hit the ball very well, but he does have some home run metrics today. If he does draw the start, he does need to start. He'll be somebody to consider, but he is high risk, high reward, but he's in a good matchup here against Colorado. Then we'll look at Mookie Betts for the Dodgers. Now, he is day to day. It looks like he should play today, but we'll wait and see to make sure because he just had a foul ball off his foot. I think he'll probably play, and if he does, he'll draw great metrics for this game. Though he has been a little bit more inconsistent recently. He does have home run potential though on the slate. Simeon for Texas in play for here. He's hit the ball very well recently. He's hitting about average. He does draw home run potential. He's had some pretty monster games recently. Of course, yesterday he had 2 home runs. Or sorry, the last game he played, he had 2 home runs 2 days ago, and he does draw great metrics again. He also has multi-hit potential. He doesn't need a head home run to pay off, but he is capable of a big game here. Then we'll look at Estrada. Estrada for San Francisco. I do think San Francisco has some nice upside today, and he's one of the guys that's hit the ball pretty well. He does draw good metrics here. He has multi-hit potential. His fantasy points per game has been a little bit streaky, but he's been very good so far this season against Colorado, so I think he's a viable option here. And then Ahmad Rosario, he's been somebody that I've liked occasionally with the Dodgers since he's joined there, and he had a really good game yesterday. And I liked him quite a bit yesterday too. He had multi hits, so I think he's capable of that again. He's been pretty solid in in certain situations, and this is definitely a situation where I like. He's a good spot here. Moving to third base, we'll start with Devers for Boston. He's a guy that tends to be streaky for a fantasy perspective. Now, he has been kind of rough up until a few games ago. About 5 games ago, he started hitting the ball very well. He's had 3 multi-hit games in that stretch. He definitely draws that potential today, though he does strike out quite a bit sometimes. Gunnar Henderson, Henderson for Baltimore is in play. He has also been somewhat streaky this season, but right now he's hitting pretty good. He's had 2 multi-hit games in the last 4, and he draws good metrics, so he is striking out a lot. So that is a concern here. Then we'll look at David Villar here again at third base. He can play here at this position, but also Rendon, if he comes back today, which it looks like he will be doing, then he should be good to go today. If that's the case, then he'll be somebody I would definitely find viable as he's hitting the ball pretty good against Cleveland so far this season, and I think he's got some viability here back from the injury. But he's high risk, high reward at this position. Maybe in the shortstop here, we'll look at Seager for Texas. Now he's been boomer bust recently. He has not been quite as good as he was early in the season. Only a 286 average over the last 10, but he has home run potential. And he does draw good metrics. He also doesn't strike out a ton, though he has struck out 3 times the last 2 games, so that is a little bit of a concern. And mostly because Texas is getting absolutely destroyed in some of these games against Houston. But now he's got a nice plus matchup here against Oakland. Lindor for the Mets is in play today. He's not hit the ball very well recently, but he's still getting doubles and triples and home runs, and he also has some stolen base potential, which is helping his fantasy points. He also has had several multi-hit games. His batting average will continue to improve if he can keep hitting like this right now. Gunnar Henderson and Ahmad Rosario can also play at this position, which I do like a lot. And then C.J. Abrams for Washington, he's in play because of his stolen base potential, and he manages to score fantasy points even if he doesn't do much. As long as he can get on base and have the opportunity for stolen bases, he has a good chance to pay off from a fantasy perspective, as he's getting a ton. Maybe the outfielders, Acuna is a core play today. He is absolutely just a monster lately. He had 2 home runs yesterday against St. Louis. He's got stolen base potential as well. He's just doing everything right now, and he's hitting the ball very well with his monster hitting and stuff. So I think he's a great play on the slate. I think Atlanta is going to have a really big game again. If Jorge Soler comes back, then he'll be in play today. It looks like he might. Well, it looks like maybe he's actually been put on the injury list for another 10 days. So I don't know if he'll play today or not. But he is in play if he was to play, but I'm not sure if he will. Double check the news on him later on throughout the day. Aaron Judge is in play today. He is kind of been robust throughout the season right now. He's not hitting the ball particularly well without the home runs, but he's had a couple of multi-hit games recently, so he's got some consideration here, but he does need a home run to pay off at this pretty high price. Mookie Betts also in play here at outfield. Yelich for Milwaukee is in play today. He's been somewhat inconsistent throughout the season, but he does have home run metrics here, and he's also getting some stolen bases lately, which is helping. Though he does need to have a multi-hit game probably to pay off here at this price. Mullins, if he doesn't hit home run at least. Cedric Mullins is also in play for Baltimore. He's been high risk, high reward throughout the season, but he is got some home run upside. He hasn't played a ton recently. He hadn't been playing every day after except for recently, and so he is inconsistent. But he has really good games against Boston this season. He has nice home run potential today. I like his upside as a result. Cordero for the Yankees is kind of a Hail Mary play today. He has not hit the ball well, but he does have home run potential. He's a boomer bust play, but right now the Yankees are kind of all over the place. But he's one guy that's hitting the ball out of the park a few times, so he's in consideration. And then Ruiz for Oakland, he's also in play today. He's hit the ball very well recently. He's also getting tons of stolen bases, which is really giving him a lot of upside and give him fantasy point potential. He doesn't play every day, but when he does, he's somebody that's worth consideration, and he's nice and cheap and a great price. He was very close to being a core play on the slate. Marte for the Mets also in play. If he does play today, I'm not sure. It looks like he might be injured, back from his injury as well today, but I'm not 100% sure that he will be. If he is, though, he's going to be somebody I would consider today. But he is high risk, high reward with a little bit of home run upside, but not very much. Then we'll look at Yoshida for Boston. He has hit the ball very well throughout the season. He has home run potential. He has nice metrics here. He does have multi-hit potential as well, and he doesn't necessarily have to have a home run, but he is, he's a pretty solid option on the slate. Nemo has also hit the ball very well as of late with the home runs coming in bunches. I'm a little surprised by that, but hey, I'm not going to complain. He's hitting the ball well. He's somebody I would definitely like to roster at his price, and he's a great option on the slate. And then Santander for Baltimore, also in play today. It looks like he was good to go today, and he should have good metrics for this game. He has home run potential, though sometimes he does strike out a lot. He has not been striking out much lately, and he's got multi-hit potential here as well. And then last but not least, Austin Slater is a Hail Mary play for San Francisco. He's been somewhat inconsistent throughout the season. Not a huge home run threat most of the time, but he does draw good hitting metrics, and he has some potential, though he has, 0 point games a lot of times, but he's kind of high risk, high reward here. So I think he's got some capability. With that said, guys, thank you for liking, commenting, subscribing. If you have any comments or questions, feel free to leave them below, and have a nice day, guys.